Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Poisoner's Almanac. I am your co-host, Adam.
I'm Rebecca.
Hello, my dear.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm glad that it's Friday.
Oh,
Well, tomorrow it'll be Saturday when everybody hears this, or whenever they listen to it. I don't know.
right.
Time is relative. Who cares?
So what's new?
I've got a birthday card from one of our listeners.
Oh my gosh.
It was so cute.
Yes. Shay sent us a handmade, crafted from scratch.
It's very nice. It's very cute.
It's very cute.
Yes, and it's got the seal. Loved the seal. I love a good like wax seal.
It's got an authentic wax seal. We got to
nice.
post. You got to post some. Some photos.
Stuff. And like, I love where she's like, I promise that I didn't use Shields green for this card, because Shields green is made with diversity.
That's right.
So, and we need to do another, I need to do a whole episode where we just do, I think somebody asked for an episode where we talk about poisons used in art, like in paints and stuff.
Oh man.
And it'd be cool to kind of pair that with
lead paint.
Well, yeah, lead, but there's also a lot of different a lot of heavy metals actually were used in paints. But it'd be cool to pair that with just what in this century would kill you? Look at makeup and different things like that.
So many things. Yeah, new episode of Severance tonight.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah.
That show just keeps getting better and better.
I'm gonna post the I'm working on the next Instagram post, getting there. I do it a lot in car line because it gives me a second to sit there and actually do something.
Yeah. And
I can't go anywhere and get distracted, so I have to sit there. And so I'm like, you know what? I'll do it now. So usually I'm in car line when I'm doing the Instagram post.
You show up a solid half hour early.
No, I show up an hour early.
Is it an
You kind of have to. Yeah. I get there at 3. They get out at 3:45. I get there 3 or a little bit before 3.
Wow.
So maybe about 45 minutes earlier. Because if you don't, you're in the back of the line and it takes forever. So I like to get there so that I can get her and get home.
Yes. You're trying to minimize contact with other human beings as much as possible.
That and stress. Yeah. I hate driving and I hate traffic. So
you hate both of those things.
So I'm going to do it, best to do that.
Yeah. And for those of you who have seen on the podcast Instagram, Becca has transitioned to making video posts now. And I think she's doing great. She's super cute. And yeah, the challenge has been for Becca not to just simply reproduce the podcast.
It has, yeah. I just want to keep talking about stuff, but I'm trying to keep it at a certain minute limit.
60 to 90 seconds, something like that.
No, like 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
2 minutes 45.
I'm working on it. Okay.
I'm going to edit your next video.
There's just so much to talk about, but
there is, and you talked about all of it in the podcast.
Yeah, you're right. I am going to make a TikTok for the podcast too.
Yes, there will be a podcast TikTok coming soon.
Hopefully TikTok sticks around.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Who knows? Maybe Medicare will stick around.
You've also got to help me with doing the YouTube thing because
yes,
you're
we're
good
gonna
with YouTube.
So we're just filling out the social channels for the podcast to a more robust level. So we're gonna make a Poisoner's Almanac TikTok and a Poisoner's Almanac YouTube
where it's separate.
Yes.
And I get stressed out really easy when I'm trying to figure something out online. So I need your help because
sure.
I do. I get really stressed out if I can't figure something out online. I'm like, I just suck at it then. So
you're so wickedly intelligent, but then when you have technology is a trauma trigger for you.
I feel defeated by technology a lot of the time. I can do word processors because that's been my thing for so long. I can do the basic stuff. I mean, I grew up on Windows 95, Windows 98,
throwback.
I am doing my best. I wrote my first paper using a typewriter.
I think I did too. My mom had a word processor from when she graduated college back in 94.
Yeah, I had a typewriter and you had to push the thing. It wasn't even one that you
the mechanical typewriter.
Yeah, it was a
shunk.
Shunk. I used to love that sound. Oh, the feel of the keys too as they went down. Oh, felt good.
People are buying keyboards now that have that noise, that sound.
The clickety clack.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's a stem.
Yeah, it is. It's
People,
nice.
because it's a stem. They're like, I don't know. I'm not actually typing anything. I just like the sound.
I know. I want one. The way it feels on your fingers too is nice. It's a nice feeling.
Like this low profile Apple keyboard, Bluetooth keyboard I have. It's so low profile. Like there's no depth to it. There's no clickety clack.
It's meh.
Story time. I escaped a religious cult 7 years ago. Without going into too much detail here, let me just say it was an extremely difficult journey. My mental health spiraled downhill, and I thankfully had enough presence of mind to seek out a therapist to work through what was going on with me. My therapist helped give me context to all the wild things I'd walked away from. He was kind, patient, and guided me through what my new normal might look like. I had never had healthy boundaries in my life. Therapy helped show me that as a result of being in a cult or high control group, I had never fully become my own person. It's a shocking thing to learn at the age of 32. I learned how to communicate to the people around me what I was going to do, and more importantly, not do with my time, energy, and resources. BetterHelp is the sponsor of this episode, and they're on a mission to make starting therapy easier. BetterHelp is a platform where therapists and their clients can communicate effectively and get the most out of therapy. There's a journal inside the platform for personal reflection, and there are group sessions on a number of different topics available every day. Starting therapy is easy with BetterHelp. Fill out a questionnaire, and you'll match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. One of the best features of BetterHelp is that if the first therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch to another one until you find someone you really connect with. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. If you're struggling and think you'd benefit from a therapy session, go to betterhelp.com/almanac or choose the Poisoner's Almanac during sign up and get 10% off your first month of therapy. That'll bring us to housekeeping for the old podcast. Make sure you're following us on whatever platform you're listening on. Thank you in advance for leaving 5-star reviews. Follow us on socials. We have links in the show notes for that, specifically the podcast Instagram. And of course, now there's going to be a YouTube and a TikTok for the podcast. So whatever your platform of choice in the very near future. If you're listening on your phone, screenshot that and post that and tag us, and we'd love to reshare that. The Patreon is up and running. Link in the show notes to join there. You can join as a free member. You can also join as a paid member, and that gets you access to all the cool perks for the cool kids. Let us know what you'd like to see as far as content goes on the Patreon. Patreon perks include being able to leave a voicemail on our voicemail function, and we can play it here on the podcast and react to it in real time. Bonus episodes, weekly bonus episodes from my lovely wife, Rebecca.
You call me that.
What?
Becca?
Yes.
Becca.
Is that your name?
Well, it is Rebecca, but I don't like it. When people call me Rebecca, it sounds like I'm being scolded.
I said Becca.
You said Rebecca.
Did I?
Yes.
We'll play it back.
You said Rebecca. I know what I heard.
Okay. I did my waiting.
Well, hit ass, go back.
Oh man. So yeah. Patreon, link in the show notes. And also, you get shouted out by name on the podcast. And those people are as follows: 87 Pens Girl 71, Mara Santiago, Kate the Fairy, Grace Lahan, Genevieve, Nahev Shatreet, Jay Went, Inken Hafner, Kira Yorsek, Tay of Sunshine, Monique, Shane R., Sue Steves, James Mills, Megan Geiler, Liz B., Wooly Wolf NZ, Mama G., Nicole Rivers, Richard Miyako, Heather Nolan, Katie Rose, Kaylee, Sasha Rubel, Maya Showstock, Maggie's Yarm, Ogre the Viking, Lynn Rocket, Brett Moser, Zaid, Neil Houdini, Nicole Crane, Jefferson Vargas, Carmen Q, Sarah G., Knittin' Ninja, Estar, Olive Octopus, Betsy Rich, Terrorsaurus Hex, T-Bug, Christine Moljadi, Morgan Brittingham, Blau Frosch, a.k.a. Clara Jurisons, Vix, Anne Maria, Carl Ziegler Jr., Clyde, Jennifer Wilson Richter, Sarah Michelle Geller, Macaulay Sterland, Too Fidgety, Wendy G., Elena MK. Is it Elena? Elena MK? I'm putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Vilma Anderson, Caitlin Martin, Pungrammed 101, Minnesota SPT, Michael McCombs, Tasha, Stuart Slattery, Prem Risen, Simone Valdez, Christian Schradergaard, Tina at Have Not Had My Coffee, Maria Anna, Bonnie, Oma D, Rynel Alara, Kristen Arnold, Aaron Carey, Lynn Simpson, Melissa Emmel, Desiree Davis, Jennifer Ramirez Johnson, Dalek Party, The Warped Witch, Sometimes Jules, Mr. Slave, Dizzy Dancer, Creative Otter, Yadmit, Supergirl Sway, Rachel, Anya Brandt, Ebby, and please welcome the new members this week, Leah Marie Matson, and here's a good one, Lady Digitalis.
Ooh, Foxy. Get it?
Foxy because
Glove.
Heyo.
Love it.
Oh man, Lady Digitalis, you're in the right place. Also send us questions or content suggestions to the Instagram with a comment or a DM, or you can do that on Patreon as well. Leave us a voicemail. I'm going to repost the link in the Patreon for you guys to do that, and that will do it for housekeeping, ladies and gentlemen.
Feel free to send us a message on the Instagram. I'm pretty sure I always message back.
We do.
Yeah,
we check, discussion threads in the Patreon and DMs.
I write down
sure.
suggestions for later, like to kind of put in my research folder. I say folder, but I mean the folder in my head because I don't actually
folder in your head.
A real folder.
You know what? What I saw when you said folder in your head was like the thing on the computers at Lumen where they're flipping through the Rolodex of files.
Yeah,
that's your brain.
Yeah.
The work is mysterious and important.
It is. Best believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just send me like videos too. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you guys aren't watching Severance on Apple TV, I mean, it's so good.
It's fun times.
It's so good.
So I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Well, one of the elephants. There's many elephants in the room. Also, if you don't know where that phrase comes from, you should look it up because I did. Because every time I don't know or understand a saying, I have to look up
idioms.
Yeah, I mean,
idioms are hysterical. I saw anybody who is autistic, especially, idioms are like just the frontier of cognitive gymnastics.
Yeah, I like to know the context. I like to know the context behind why you're saying that. Like, why are you trying to kill two birds with one stone? Why would you want to do that?
Killing birds. How dare you?
Why are you throwing rocks at things?
Well, Mitch Hedberg, the stand-up comedian, he was like, they say people in glass houses should not throw rocks. How about don't throw rocks?
Yeah, or don't live in glass houses. That's got to be weird.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. Well, somebody made a TikTok that was, I sent it to you, and the guy was like, well, a horse in the hand is worth two birds in the bush, but you can't make him drink.
Like, what? It was funny. It was like, I'm pretty sure my mom just makes them up. Like, she'll say things, and I'm like,
two birds in the bush are worth a gallon of horse water.
Yeah, so I'm just going to start making them up and see if anybody notices.
Just combine them. Just mash them up.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I say them wrong a lot anyway. I'm not going to lie. I'll be like, I'll say something and I'll walk away and I'm like, is that how you're supposed to say that? Now I got to go look it up.
Well, what is it? You never look a gift horse in the mouth? And then what's another idiom? Let's mash two up together right now. Never look a gift horse in the mouth. And then what's another one you hear? It's confusing.
Well, now the only one I'm thinking about is you can't lead a horse to water and make him drink it.
Right.
Oh, no, the cake. You can't have your cake and eat it too. But you do have your cake. If you're eating the cake, you have it.
You can't give a gift to a cake horse.
And also have its mouth? What?
You can give a cake to a gift horse, but you can't make him eat.
Give a cake to a cake horse, can't make him. Okay.
I'm saying that's making me laugh.
Yeah.
That makes me laugh. Oh boy, that's so much fun.
I still don't understand the whole cake one. If you have your cake, you
can't have your horse and eat the cake with it too.
You can have your horse and eat it too?
Right. Oh boy.
Anyway.
All right. So.
But the elephant in the room actually comes from a poet in 1814 named Ivan Krylov. He was a poet and fabulist. That's fabulous. Probably a fabulist.
What?
It's a fabulist. I just read it wrong. It's fabulist.
Oh my God, Rebecca, that is hysterical.
It's Fabulist. So the first thing I saw was fabulous. It's a fabulist, I think.
No, but we need that to be a thing.
Yeah, a fabulist.
And this is just fabulous.
Fabulous.
It's Frank Engelhofer.
Oh my God.
From Father of the Bride.
Love it. But yeah, he wrote. It makes sense because he wrote a fable, so he's a fabulist.
Mother of the Bride and the boy. I didn't get that. Okay.
That's
Fabulous.
big.
This I just don't do anymore.
So yeah, he wrote a fable entitled "The Inquisitive Man," which tells of a man who goes to a museum and notices all sorts of little things, but he just sort of doesn't notice that there's an elephant there. And then it became like proverbial after that. So the elephant in the room goes back to 1814. Wow. I read it. I was like, I still don't get it, but okay, cool. I'm sure it meant something back then. So,
do you know the origin of the real McCoy?
I told you the origin of the real McCoy.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you sent. I found a TikTok where somebody.
I sent you that TikTok.
I regret nothing.
It was a part of Black History Month.
Yes.
I sent you that TikTok.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I think somebody else needs to be medicated.
Whatever. All right, let's go.
Okay, so
I'm going to remain silent for the rest of the podcast. Okay.
It's funny because I can't remember what I'm supposed to be doing, but I remember everything.
You remember everything I'm supposed to be doing.
I remember everything that I've ever told you or said, or like, I remember those things, but when it comes to knowing where my keys and stuff are, no idea. No idea where my phone is. Anyway. But yeah, the elephant that I want to discuss.
I'm going to poison you. What?
You wouldn't be able to.
You're right.
The elephant that I want to discuss is measles.
Measles?
Why? Because it's making a pretty serious comeback, and that is not good news.
And why is that?
It's not good news. We're going to talk about a lot today. But yeah, but isn't it just a rash or whatever? No, it's not. Nope. It is the most contagious airborne viral infection that we know of. It is incredibly contagious. Mm-hmm. So yeah, not cool. And we're going to discuss stuff about vaccines later in the episode because whether you like it or not, these outbreaks of measles that we're seeing right now is because children are not being vaccinated.
Correct.
We could be done with this, but we're not. I'm a little nervous to have this conversation, mainly because I feel like every time these days it's been so politicized that like when you try to have a conversation or communicate anything about vaccines, it feels like it's an automatic fight. And it shouldn't be.
So this is what we call an epistemic or epistemological crisis.
Yeah, and it's like I'm not trying to come off as arrogant or force anybody to do anything. I'm just trying to give you information about the facts. Yeah. And
we should preface this by saying we both are licensed healthcare workers, and we are well acquainted with severe sickness. Whenever someone mentions a health condition to us, we don't see words on a page. We see faces of people lying in hospital beds.
But also,
and their families.
Having been in the healthcare field, I've also been seen as the enemy. Well, okay. You're trying to kill everybody with your shots, and I'm like, I'm really not. You're being paid.
Yes,
you're being paid to.
How much did Big Pharma pay you to do this?
I'm like, actually, Big Pharma would love it if you didn't take the shots because the shots are free. But if you're in the hospital, you're going to be paying for all kinds of medications.
Correct.
So,
I love this. I guess this is an idiom as well. Everything sounds like a conspiracy when you have no idea how everything works. Yeah.
And it's, but it feels like it's an us versus them sort of thing. And I don't think it should be.
And I'm just going to be straight with you guys because of my history of having escaped a cult. That is a cult tactic.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about a little bit about where, this whole vaccine controversy came from too.
Of course, it's a modern phenomenon.
And so it's gonna be interesting one. But like also like I'm very aware too that there are people who are like vaccine hesitant because it's like, well, I'm scared because I don't know a lot about
Mm-hmm.
what's in this and stuff. And we're going to go over like what's in particular vaccines as well.
Yeah.
So
Let's do it.
I did the work for you.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you exactly what those things are.
Mhm.
But it's, I totally get that because you should be cautious about what you put into your body, whether it's food or medicine, because there are side
Sure.
effects. Every medicine has side effects, whether it's a medicine or a vaccine. Have you ever seen those?
True.
You ever see those like, they got some new medicines out and like I see the ads. I don't know if I think this is just an American thing. Like we do a lot of the whole ads.
Yeah, you
For
can't
meds.
advertise medications in many other countries.
Yeah. Well, here you can do that. And you can also like right after you can like have a personal injury lawyer on the screen too. So it's kind of,
those ads can run back to back.
things are confusing here, but like sometimes like they'll be rushing through the side effects at the end. They're like, and I'm like, I'm just like watching and I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
If your head explodes, call your doctor.
So
Yeah.
I get it. It's
we hold two things that are true at the same time. Data based or evidence based practice in medicine, but also patient advocacy. We believe in both of those at the same time, which is perfectly possible.
And it's funny because I've run into like whenever I had patients in the hospital, like I had one that he was just mad to be there. So mad to be there. And I get it. I wouldn't want to be there either. I didn't want to be there. I was working there. I didn't want to be there. All right. Okay. I don't want to be there.
That's okay. There's layers to that.
I should like, you know what? I got an idea. You sign out AMA and we'll go get some Chinese food. Let's go. But I didn't do that. He was supposed to take this medication. I don't remember what it was for. It was nothing crazy or anything like that. It was probably something like a Tylenol or it was something simple. And
Zofran.
I don't know, but I did the little thing with my little computer, so it could make sure that it's not.
That's what my computer sounds like too. That's wild.
Yeah. So it doesn't, make, it's a fail safe. So you don't give something twice or, it checks off that you gave it, that kind of thing.
Correct.
The MAR. And so, yeah, I'm giving this medication and like, he didn't say anything until after I put it in the cup to give it to him. And he's just like, and like he took it and he threw it in the trash. Right. And I was like, I mean, you could have just said no. Right. And I was like, okay, I'll just put that you refuse it. That's fine. You don't have to take it. That's up to you. It's your body. And his wife was looking at him like, how dare you act this way? Right. Anyway, I leave and I come back after a while and he's like, I took it out of the trash can and I took it. Like he felt so bad. And I was like, you didn't have to. I could have got you another one. Yeah. But I think once you realize like, I'm not there to kind of try to force him into anything. Like he felt a little more in control of the situation. And so I don't know. It was like, there's also this fear of people are taking control away from me. And it can be scary, especially if you're not used to anyone like telling you what to do. And that's what we're trying to do. I feel like, we're trying to help, but at the same time, it comes off as sounding like.
But which grown-ups have no experience with being told what to do? Can we be honest for a minute? How did you make it to this age?
But it's the same thing as like when someone gets older and it's time to take the keys away. You're talking about?
Yeah.
Like that's a very hard. I mean, you could take my keys away. I hate driving. I hate it. But like that is a common problem you see when people get older, and it's like, no, I'm going to drive. And part of that, they don't really want to drive that much. That's the last thing they have in their control. And it's like it feels like it's being taken from you. So I get all that. It's a complicated thing, and I think we should be able to sit and have communication and conversation about it instead of just going for each other's throats. Is what I'm trying to get across. Because it's like,
well, that'd be so much easier if it wasn't. If these things hadn't been weaponized against people.
Yeah, and like you see all
with the aim of just making money.
Well, between the whole. Between the politicization and like people talking about healthcare like they know what they're talking about, and they're either politicians or they're celebrities, like, and they're a lot of times they're the ones that are like they're out to get you, or it's or from the other side it's like, oh well, these patients are just ignorant and blah. It's like, no, maybe they're just scared and they just need some help understanding I like to understand things before I do them too. But there hasn't been any room to actually communicate between just us and them, so that it's not us versus them. Instead, it's like all these other people who aren't working in that field and who do only care about money, by the way. And I'm not saying big pharma is not a thing. It definitely is. Like insulin and epinephrine, all these drugs that are like way too overpriced. These life-saving drugs. It's ridiculous. And I don't like pharmaceutical companies for that reason, or insurance companies.
Well, I'll never forget the face of that CEO of a pharmaceutical company that was hauled in front of Congress to testify, and they had jacked up the price of EpiPens.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That markup got him hauled in front of Congress, and the smug look on that fool's face, I will never forget it.
Yeah,
that is the face of evil. If I die and I wake up and I see that guy, I'll know that I was not actually saved.
Yeah, I will look. I think that those that do the hard work in healthcare, the nurses, the the CNAs, the respiratory therapists, the physical therapists, the doctors, everybody, all the techs, they want to help people. That's what I believe. They want to help people.
Yeah.
But then you have the ones who are making the gobs of money who don't even work around people, like the CEOs, the health insurance CEOs, the pharmaceutical companies that are like, yeah, it's fine, just mark it up a little bit so we can get our profits in this year. It's like they don't even see the patients.
You know what would be cool? 50% profit margin this quarter.
Yeah, they don't even see the patients. So no. It's separate from them. They don't even, they don't have to feel anything about it. Anyway, I don't know why I got off on that.
It's all pertinent.
But because when I talk about vaccines, I want to bring facts, I want to bring information, the data, and, just kind of go from there. I'm not trying to be at war with anybody, but it feels like especially where we live, and especially since COVID, like with the COVID vaccine and stuff, things got real.
Ratcheted everything.
And it wasn't just politicized. It was like, you've got different religious takes now coming at it. And it's like, anyway, we're going to talk all about that in a minute, but it's a lot. It's a lot to go through, and it just creates more confusion, I think.
Yeah.
I do want to mention that when it comes to something like vaccines, especially for something like measles, the decisions that you make don't just affect you. And I know you hear that a lot. Well, it's like, well, what does it matter to you if I'm vaccinated and stuff? And it's like, well, measles being like the contagious infection that we know, it's not just going to affect you. Yeah. There are people who can't get vaccines, children who are too young, you've got the immunosuppressed, those kinds of things. And so, if you're out and about and you've got measles, you can spread it to a lot of people. So, or if your child has measles, they can spread it to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And measles is not just a rash. I've heard people say nobody dies of measles. Actually, a kid just died of measles in Texas. So, and we're going to talk more about that too. So, but I want to talk about the disease itself. So let's get into that. So measles, let me give you some numbers to create a sort of picture. Let's say you're in a grocery store. Okay. I don't know why you want to do
which you hate.
I hate. If a person who has the flu is there, he, she, or they can spread it to about 3 other people near them. And the flu sucks. Hate it. But, is what it is.
What do you mean near? How close they got to be?
In the vicinity, like you just walking by.
Wow.
Here's the thing. I know like some droplets in the air can stay there for a while, depending on the virus or location and everything like that. So, and measles has been considered airborne, not just droplets. It's kind of both, really. So
makes sense.
Whereas the flu is more of a droplet based spread. So now, if they have COVID, they can spread it to about 1 to 3 others as well. And we know how that went. But what about something crazy like Ebola, which is going to be a future episode, I promise. They may infect about 2. Now, Ebola is spread through like contact with infected tissues or bodily fluids, so it's a little different. Like you shake someone's hand and maybe you both have a cut or I don't know, something. Yeah. So now if a person has measles, they can spread it up to 18 other people nearby.
Oh.
9 out of 10 people who come near someone with measles will catch it and have symptoms. I don't make the rules. That's just how the virus is.
Wow.
It's considered both airborne and droplet in terms of transmission. So the virus can spread by contact with infected nasal or throat secretions. You got like coughing, sneezing, small talk, or breathing the air that was breathed by someone with measles. The virus remains active and contagious in the air or on infected surfaces for up to 2 hours. Yeah. So also it can be spread up to 4 days before you even notice any sort of outward symptom like a rash. So you may not even know you have it. Now let's picture a daycare or an elementary school, because we all know how clean those places stay, right?
Yeah.
And how the kids touch stuff, put their hands all over their faces and their mouths. And that doesn't end. I swear it doesn't. Like, not for a while, because our kid is 9 and she's still touching stuff. I give her so much like sanitizer to take to school with her because I'm tired of being sick. I'm tired of it. But, you know, it is what it is. Now, when an unvaccinated child comes into contact with measles, and by contact, I mean just being in the same room, it is incredibly likely they will catch it. So why is measles concerning? Because despite what you might have heard, children can die from measles and have died from measles or have been disabled by it. It's not chickenpox, which actually I've seen people our age put into the ICU because of chickenpox, by the way. Also, shingles sucks. Doesn't like that. I've been there. But measles is more contagious than chickenpox, by the way. And I know some people are thinking, oh, it can't be that bad. And right now, it actually isn't. What we're seeing right now isn't as bad as it could get. So it's pretty bad, but it's not as bad as it could get. So, like I said, a child in Texas did just die from the illness, and hundreds of others are currently hospitalized throughout America and probably other nations too. It's been, you know, in America, we talk about it because, like, for a while we did have it eliminated here.
Yeah.
I won't say eradicated because it's not, you know.
Yeah, it was still around.
Yeah,
but
but
it wasn't
not
a threat
here as much. So,
thanks, vaccines.
But it can get, like I said, it can get so much worse, and it will if something isn't done to prevent as much. I'm not fear-mongering. I'm just letting you know. I'm vaccinated as...
Yeah, this stuff has been publicly reported on by journalists and everything.
It's just
public knowledge.
I'm vaccinated, as is my family, including my 9-year-old, and honestly, I feel pretty safe personally. It just sucks that so many other children are not, and that this is a concern that we're having today since, like I said, we had it eliminated for a while. I should tell you, though, that, you know, no vaccine is perfect. Neither is any medication or supplement or quote-unquote natural substance, for that matter. Also, y'all know arsenic is natural, right? Like, everybody's like, oh, it's natural. I'm like, yeah, so is cyanide. So is arsenic. So is lead. A lot of things are natural. Doesn't mean they're healthy. All the vitamin C in the world will not prevent you from catching measles. It just won't. Just won't. Also, don't hate me for this, but just because you take a bunch of vitamin C doesn't mean your body's using it. You're likely just peeing most of that out if you're not deficient. Scurvy should be a future episode, just saying. Don't worry, mateys. Or scurvy. Arg. Also, not everyone is able to take vaccines or certain vaccines, as they may be too young, like I said, to receive it. Some have allergies to something in the vaccine, and we'll discuss what you could have allergies to. Or like the immunosuppressed can't take them as much. So, however, when the majority of the population does participate in keeping themselves safe, keeping their children safe, they help others. They help keep others safe as well by creating this thing called herd immunity. If enough people are not getting the illness, then the illness can't really spread to those who can't be vaccinated. So, like, it creates this sort of, you know, barrier for those who can't protect themselves. So, like, I remember when I intentionally kept Camilla out of the nursery at the church we went to back in the day because, like, I knew there were unvaccinated kids in there, and it's not because I didn't want her interacting with them.
No,
it's because, like, I didn't want her catching some medieval illness that is really difficult to deal with. especially with such a young immune system. Like she was, she got her first shots, I think, around 6 months. And then, I felt a little more comfortable then. But like when they're really young like that, like, and oh my God, don't kiss babies on the mouth. Please don't do that. Don't
just lick the bottom of your shoe if you're going to do that.
Or like it hurts them too. Like, don't do that. Especially like, and cold sores. Really? No. Leave the baby alone. Step away from the baby. So, yeah. Like, was I scared? Yeah, sure. But I will never apologize for doing what I believe kept my child safe. And I think every mother, including those who are nervous about vaccines, would say the same. Like I don't think people are choosing to not get their children vaccinated because they don't like their kids.
No, that's not what it is.
They're
doing
worried
it in the name of safety.
Well, they're worried for their safety, as any mother should.
This would be the safest thing to do.
Right. So it's, it is what it is.
Again, epistemic crisis.
Yeah. And
we don't know. Epistemology is like how we know what we know and why we think we know it for sure. But when all this ambiguity comes into play from, multiple different factors, nobody knows where to turn.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, something that was certain no longer is, and everybody's confused.
I feel like the internet was supposed to make us smarter, and it really didn't.
It's only going to amplify what we already were.
Yeah. So, yeah. Also, like modernly speaking, and these numbers are from 2022, measles remains a major public health concern, causing over 100,000 deaths per year worldwide. Today, the most affected continents remain Africa, South America, and Asia, but it is making a comeback in the US and Europe as well. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Okay, I'm a little mad, mainly at the misinformation that others have spread that hurt people. Now, measles has been around for a long time. It's a virus that is especially harmful in young children, especially 6 months and younger, but it can infect anyone. Those at risk for complications of the disease are typically those younger than 5 and those older than 20, believe it or not. Also pregnant women and those who are immunosuppressed for obvious reasons. The current measles virus appeared back in the day from the rinderpest virus, which infects cattle, bison, and other hooved animals.
Hooved?
It behooves me. Between the 4th and 6th century BCE. So it's adapted and it basically jumped, as a lot of them do, unfortunately. So it has adapted quite perfectly to the human species, becoming strictly human without any animal reservoirs. It was first written about by a Persian doctor, Muhammad ibn Zakaria al-Razi, in the 9th century AD in a book titled The Book of Smallpox and Measles. I'm sure this is an English translation of this title. So wow. I don't know what the original title was, but
that was coming out of the Middle East, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like this was the 9th century. There was a time when like the Middle East was like the golden area for all kinds of like science, math, like really cool stuff. But yeah, this came out of the 9th century AD, book titled The Book of Smallpox and Measles. Like I said, I don't know the original translation, but in this account, the distinction between the two diseases is made. They are different. They're caused by different viruses, but both have been prevalent and have had epidemic statuses as far back as humans were settling together in big enough groups to have such. A Scottish physician named Francis Home was able to show that measles was caused by some contagious agent found in the blood of infected humans. It was thoroughly studied in 1846 by a Danish physician, Peter Panum, during an epidemic in Faroe Islands. The viral nature of this disease was further demonstrated in 1911, and the virus, Morbillivirus hominis, was identified in 1954 by Thomas Peebles and John Enders. It is a part of the family Paramyxoviridae, which also includes the canine virus distemper. You know how your dog gets like a distemper shot annually, and that protects against distemper?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so same family of viruses. For those of you without dogs, distemper is a canine virus that can affect the central nervous system of dogs, resulting in death or lasting neurological damage. There is no
Wow.
cure and very little means of treatment, which is why the distemper shot is important for them. Moving on to measles. With measles. So what does measles look like? Symptoms of measles typically appear 10 to 12 days after exposure and include high fever for days. We're talking 104 and up when it comes to the fever.
Wow.
Cough, runny nose, red and watery eyes, eye inflammation like you'd see with conjunctivitis or pink eye, white spots in the mouth or like on the inside of the cheeks and on the throat. These are like Koplik spots, I think they're called. Sore throat and mouth, enlarged lymph nodes, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain. And there's a red blotchy rash that forms, sometimes with raised areas, and it usually starts on the face and upper body, and it moves to the rest of the body, just all over. It can last about a week before fading. The high fever typically continues along with the rash, so I mean, it lasts a while. Symptoms of severe disease progress and lead to fatigue, drowsiness, stiff or painful neck, confusion, sensitivity to light, seizure, coma, difficulty breathing. 1 in 5 unvaccinated people in the U.S. who are infected with measles will be hospitalized. It's a complex sort of illness, and we'll talk about the complications of it in just a minute, like the actual why you'd have those particular symptoms. Ear infections may also occur in about 1 in 10 cases. These other complications can include pneumonia, which is about 1 in 20 cases. This is the most common cause of death in children with measles. Encephalitis, which is about 1 in every 1,000 cases. This can lead to lasting brain damage. Another complication is deafness and learning disabilities and death. Nearly 1 to 3 out of 1,000 children will die of measles complications, whether it's respiratory or neurological. Okay. There are also pregnancy complications with measles, and the infection can pass from mother to child easily via the placenta, which they would then have congenital measles or breast milk. The complications in pregnancy can result in miscarriage, low birth weight, preterm births, stillborn births, and the risk for the child to develop something called subacute sclerosing panencephalitis, or SSPE later. We'll go over this in just a second because it's another complication of just having measles as a young child as well. Another long-term complication for survivors is the complete wiping of the immune system in some cases, leaving them susceptible to illnesses that they would normally have been immune to.
Now that's wild.
Yeah, this is called immune amnesia.
Wow.
It can also alter your immune system. It literally alters the cells there, like the T cells, B cells, all that.
Permanently?
It can cause long-term immunosuppression. So,
bro. Okay.
A more rare complication that I mentioned already is subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. In this rare occurrence, the virus causes a progressive nervous system disorder that is fatal. I say rare, but it's about 7 to 11 out of 100,000 cases that may experience it. What is scary as well is that this does not show symptoms for a good 7 to 10 years after the original measles infection. So, like, you can have measles, get better, and then some years later have this issue because of it. The risk of this complication is higher for those who are infected with measles under the age of 2 years old. Now, there is no cure for measles, and treatment varies based on symptoms and complications. Some are just isolated and given supportive care like fluids, rest, fever and pain meds, oxygen if they need it, until hopefully it passes. Vitamin A is commonly given in the hopes that it will protect the eyes and eyesight. Vitamin A is not a cure for the illness itself. I think people hear vitamin A and they're like, yes. But, I mean, if children are deficient or maybe they're not eating well, then it can make things, that can make things worse overall. So vitamin A is given to hopefully protect the eyesight. Now, if pneumonia or ear infections develop, antibiotics might be involved. If respiratory distress occurs, obviously respiratory therapy is involved and mechanical ventilation if necessary. There is a way to lessen the chances of an unvaccinated person being infected or having serious illness after contact with someone who has measles by receiving a post-exposure vaccine within 72 hours of that contact.
Oh,
But a lot
okay.
of times you won't know because it takes a while for symptoms to show in that other person. And it's like, if you were
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to tell. Also, unvaccinated pregnant women or those who are immunosuppressed or cannot receive the vaccine may be provided with preventative treatment with immune serum globulin. These are like antibodies within 6 days of exposure to prevent serious illness. And like, it's the same as like when COVID, like they had like the monoclonal antibodies, like that still has to be given to you within a certain amount of time. You can't get in there and you're in respiratory failure and it's like, just give me the antibodies. It's like, it doesn't work like that.
No.
It's kind of late at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, by 1912, measles was seen as a disease that should be reported when diagnosed throughout the country so that the spread could hopefully be slowed because it spreads so easily and so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The first 10 years of it being reported and recorded, there was an average of 6,000 deaths in the U.S. every year. In the late 1940s to 1950s, nearly every child had measles before the age of 15, and about 3 to 4 million Americans were infected every year. Of these yearly cases, 48,000 were hospitalized, and around 400 to 500 died, and 1,000 suffered encephalitis, which is like swelling of the brain, could lead to death, neurological or neuromuscular damage. So, Now I mentioned that in 1954, Thomas Peebles and John Enders identified the virus, but they also studied cases in a Boston epidemic that year. And after isolating it in the blood of 13-year-old David Edmonston, they set out to find a vaccine. In 1963, Enders and his colleagues were able to do this with the strain that they isolated, and it was licensed for use in the U.S. In 1968, the vaccine was improved upon using a weaker strain to effectively defend from the virus. And this is the same vaccine that has been used since, basically. And the rate of measles began to fall significantly. For reference, I stated that there were 3 to 4 million cases of infections in Americans every year in the early 20th century. That was before the vaccine. After the vaccine, the number of cases decreased by 81% from the recent year by 1981. There was a measles outbreak in 1989 among vaccinated school-aged children, which prompted the recommendation of a second dose of the MMR vaccine for children. This is why school-aged children tend to get a booster at some point. I think it's around high school age. And so following widespread implementation of this recommendation and improvements in the first dose of the vaccine, coverage reported measles cases declined even more than they had. For instance, in 2023, there were only 47 cases in America compared to how many there were before. That's a lot different. Measles was actually declared eliminated in America by the year 2000, meaning that there had not been any cases within 12 months. Unfortunately, after nearly 19 to 20 years, that status was no longer with us. But yeah, before moving on, let's get some numbers for Europe because, that's the only other recent set I could find in a reliable peer-reviewed source that wasn't America. In 1998, the World Health Organization made a goal for Europe to have eliminated measles and rubella, which is German measles. We'll talk about that in a second, by 2010. This failed, however. In 2018, Europe and America saw resurgences of measles. In 2018, Europe reported more than 21,000 cases of measles, including 35 deaths. Earlier reports in 2019 showed a further 300% increase. The cases did go down in 2020 because, COVID precautions led to isolation and such, which also helps with measles, obviously. But the main reason for the resurgence is because of hesitation and fear of vaccination, leading to less children being protected, basically. Now, approximately 22 million infants missed at least one dose of measles vaccine through routine immunization in 2023. So, there's that.
Oh, that's a lot. Oh, boy. 22 million. Okay.
So let's get to the vaccine. Well, actually, let me give an overview of mumps and rubella because the vaccine that we use,
the MMR,
it covers those things too.
Did you happen across in your research Dr. Paul Offit?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because he was key in developing the MMR vaccine.
I won't I'm not mentioning him in this, but he has written a book that I think is very significant.
He's been very public facing, combating disinformation and misinformation regarding vaccination. He's a pediatric infectious disease physician at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, which is where the MMR vaccine was developed. So yeah, he's
really good at communicating.
He is. He puts in a lot of effort with podcasts, social media, all that stuff.
So yeah. Now some freak out over the fact too that like all three are included in one shot, but that's really not that uncommon. The DTaP or the Tdap, depending on what age you get it, is a combination of the tetanus, pertussis, which is whooping cough, and diphtheria vaccines. Anyone remember Balto? Remember Balto?
Yes.
Like the kids all had diphtheria. They were trying to get them medicine from.
Wow. I forgot that was the illness. Okay.
Love Balto. I was obsessed with that movie when I was a kid. I had the stuffies. I had Balto. It was great. And that stupid goose. Was it the goose that was like his best friend? Anyway, and I think it was Russian, which makes it makes sense now because it was Alaska. And I was like, did he like fly over from Russia? I don't know. Anyway, so mumps. And I think part of the reason why people don't take these illnesses all that seriously is because their names don't exactly sound very scary or serious at all.
They don't. And they're not cultural references. We don't know people who've had measles, mumps, rubella.
Well, I mean,
we don't know people. Well, I mean, it is. I know it's relative nowadays, but I mean, I would. Again, I've ended up in conversations about vaccines a lot over the last 4 years with patients and their families, and one of the common questions I asked them was like, "Do you know anyone with polio right now? Do you know why you don't know anyone with polio?"
Unfortunately, I've heard talks about. I don't want to talk about it. Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that right now.
Right. Stay focused.
Yeah, but it's funny because mumps actually sounds like an illness that you'd see on Tiny Toons or something. Remember Tiny Toons? They're tiny, they're toony, they're all loony.
Taking me back.
What's we're tiny? We're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony. Anyway. So yeah, mumps goes back a while as well, and the first written description of the illness comes from Hippocrates in the 5th century BC. He was describing an outbreak of mumps on the Greek island Thasos, not Thanos, Thasos, around 410 BC.
Hippocrates.
Yeah, in his Corpus Hippocraticum, in the first book of epidemics. He wrote, this is what he wrote. Swellings appeared about the ears, in many on either side, and in the greatest number on both sides, being unaccompanied by fever so as to confine the patient to bed. In all cases, they disappeared without giving trouble. Neither did any of them come to suppuration, as is common in swellings from other causes. They were a lax, large, diffused character, without inflammation or pain, and they went away without any critical sign. They seized children, adults, and mostly those who were engaged in the exercises of the palestra and gymnasium, but seldom attacked women. Many had dry coughs without expectoration, and accompanied with hoarseness of voice. That's what it says.
I am especially good at expectorating. Tui.
Not Gaston.
Well played to the lyricist over at Disney who put the word expectorating in a song.
They were trying to find something that like rhymed, and his butt got himself a thesaurus. So it was like, yes. Anyway, and this is still him speaking. In some instances earlier and in others later, inflammations with pain seized sometimes one of the testicles and sometimes both. Some of these were accompanied with fever and some not. The greater part of these were attended with much suffering. In other respects, they were free of disease so as not to require medical assistance. So a lot of vague stuff in there. So let's discuss it. Mumps is caused by a paramyxovirus. It can take a few weeks to show up after exposure, and its main noticeable symptom is parotitis, or the swelling and inflammation of the parotid glands, which can be tender and painful when they are swollen.
Are the parotid glands on top of the the thyroid?
Yeah, they're up here. That's why Hippocrates was like, swelling about the ears. It wasn't so much the ears that were swelling, it was the glands right underneath the ears that were swelling. These are part of your salivary glands. So, yeah. Other symptoms include Other symptoms include fever, flu-like symptoms, trouble eating and or drinking, confusion, disorientation, stomach pain, and orchitis. I want to take a gamble at what that word means.
Orchitis?
Orchitis.
Is that...
It's not an inflammation of orcs.
Well, it's not inflammation of the ears. That would be otitis, right? Orchitis.
I will give you a hint.
Inflammation.
I don't have them.
Tonsils.
Testicles.
Oh. I was super close. It started with a T.
I mean, I don't have my tonsils either, but for good reason. But I definitely don't. Yeah, there we go. Orchitis. So pain and swelling of the testicles if you got them.
I got orchitis.
Oh my God. It is also very contagious and spreads via droplets in the air, like with coughing, sneezing, small talk. Just saying. Also, if you touch surfaces with the virus particles or shake hands with someone who doesn't wash their hands very much, you get the idea. And I'm sorry. I try to believe that people are good and good-natured. People do not wash their hands enough. They don't. They do not. I know they don't. Anyway, it's just gross. And also drinking after others, kissing, anything to do with saliva, because we're talking about the parotid glands, being infected here, and these are salivary glands. So also, I mean, if anyone has like the flu or any sort of virus like that, drinking after them or kissing them is just asking for it. You're just asking for it. Don't do that. Anyway, complications, though rare, can get pretty serious and include such issues as encephalitis, which is like swelling within the brain, severe swelling of the testicles leading to sterility, swelling of the ovaries, which can cause abdominal pain, nausea, and vomiting, meningitis, swelling of the membranes around. That's swelling of the membranes around the brain and spinal cord. So we've talked about meningitis a little bit. Hearing loss, pancreatitis, and miscarriage in those who are pregnant. You can have mild illness too, where it's like little to no symptoms and still have these complications later. Treatment is mainly comfort care. I mean, what are you going to do? Put some ice down there, I guess. I don't know.
You guys can't see what Becca was doing with her hands just now. It was a general gesture toward the groin.
Me, I don't have them. I mean, I'm safe from that complication, I guess. I mean, I am anyway because I'm vaccinated, but prevention is vaccine. Now, rubella is also known as German measles, though it's caused by a different virus altogether known as the rubella virus or rubavirus rubellae. It's fun. It is milder than the typical measles, but definitely still annoying. Its most obvious symptom is a short-lived rash that starts on the head and face and moves downward to the rest of the body. Other symptoms can include low fever, cough, sore throat, runny nose, headache, conjunctivitis, pink eye, basically, swollen lymph nodes, and joint pain.
Orchitis.
No, actually, that's not.
No?
No.
Well, I'm disappointed.
Just mumps. Anyway. 50% of those who are infected will have little to no symptoms, but still be able to pass it to others via droplets, such as coughing and sneezing and all that, not washing hands, etc. You are typically contagious for a good week before symptoms until a week after the rash disappears. And I think the rash doesn't last as long as the rash in measles, but still. Treatment, again, is comfort care until it goes away. The most serious form of rubella is congenital rubella, in which a baby is born with the illness, having been infected by the mother via the placenta. Symptoms of congenital rubella are present at birth and can include vision loss, cataracts, glaucoma, hearing loss, deafness, heart defects, underdeveloped brain, microcephaly basically, or inflammation of the brain tissues. These can lead to neurological, learning, and behavioral issues. Also bone disease, low blood counts, thyroid disease, type 1 diabetes, and enlarged liver and spleen. So it is not good for the babies. So yeah, and congenital rubella is treated based on symptoms. You can have like maybe surgery for cataracts or heart defects, maybe, but most of these are permanent. So it's more caring for quality of life and the prevention of vaccines. Now, before I go into what vaccines are made of, I do want you to know how they do what they do. So a vaccine simply gives your body the means to form an immune response and basically a plan of attack against the illness that it's protecting against. Now, this can be done by the traditional application of a weakened or attenuated virus to the body. And I think we've spoken on that a little bit when we talked about like smallpox and stuff and the origin of like the first vaccines, which were kind of inoculation, which was kind of grosser than today's version of how we do things. Yeah. So it's funny because like I'm sure some people had a problem with that, but like when people have like a problem with vaccines, I'm like, you know, they used to do it. They used to take somebody else's nastiness and scrub it in a place on you. Nasty. Anyway. So, but yeah, these days though, and with the whole attenuated virus thing, it's like a weakened version. So, it can happen with the newer, but not brand new, mind you, mRNA technology, mRNA vaccines, which simply send these protection instructions to your immune system. And they do this, it's actually quite fascinating. Like in the case of COVID, the vaccine sends a message to produce a harmless piece of what is called the spike protein. In this case, the spike protein is found on the surface of the virus that causes COVID-19. After the protein piece is made, our cells break down the mRNA and remove it, leaving it as waste, removing it as waste. And these cells made now display that spike protein piece on their surface. Our immune system sees that and they're like, hey, that doesn't belong here. So that triggers the immune system to produce antibodies and activate other immune cells to fight off what it thinks is an infection. After this, it retains that information so that if you are infected with COVID, it is ready to fight instead of being ambushed.
There you go.
So that's how that works.
And furthermore, this technology is being further developed to prime your immune system to target cancer cells.
It's fascinating what they've been able to do.
Yes. Can you imagine a time where cancer treatment is a series of shots instead of chemo, radiation, or surgery?
And I know things can be scary if you don't understand them. So we're going to talk about what's in these things too.
Let's explain.
So typically any side effects you feel as a result of a vaccine, whether it's like the attenuated vaccines or the mRNA vaccines, like the low fever, muscle aches, they're a result of the body building that immune response. And I mean, like when I got the first COVID shot, it's mainly body aches. I don't know. I'm weird. So it was kind of cool to me. I was just like, it's kind of nifty.
Well, you understand what's happening on a microbiological level.
Yeah. I mean, and some people, they can get like a rash on their arm, or there's a few different things that can happen. It's your body responding basically to it.
Yeah.
So, and obviously there are people who can't because whether it's allergy or they have an intolerance to certain ingredients, but we'll go over that in just a second too. But yeah. Also a fever, is just your body going after something it doesn't like. So like,
true.
People are like, oh no, it gave me a fever, and your body actually did that to create, that response. But yeah, and also mRNA, your body has mRNA in it. Like you have to have it. Your body is, that's how it sends messages between. Anyway, moving on. It's literally called messenger RNA.
Messenger ribonucleic acid.
Okay, so let's discuss the vaccine that is typically given to prevent all three of the illnesses we've just mentioned. The MMR vaccine.
Witchcraft.
This vaccine, and this vaccine has been, there's been a lot of talk with it. We're going to get there. So, this vaccine gives combined protection against these illnesses and allows for the protection of others as well who may not be able to be vaccinated. I've mentioned that a lot.
There is always going to be a segment of any population that cannot safely be vaccinated. And for their sake, it is even that much more important for the majority of the population to get vaccinated to protect the people who can't.
And it's like, it's like that with medications too. I mean, like, I can't take, there's an antibiotic that I can't take. Of course, now there's different antibiotics that I can take. So that is one difference, but it's like, there's, I feel like everyone has an allergy to something. I go in my backyard and I'm allergic to the freaking grass.
That's right.
I think I'm allergic to this whole state, except for, what I'm not allergic to? The one thing in this place that I'm not allergic to.
Pine trees?
Pine trees.
Get out of here.
I'm not allergic to pine trees. I had an allergy test and that's the one tree I'm not allergic to. It's kind of sad, but here we are.
So I met this was a family member of a patient. This guy's a nurse. He was a travel nurse, and he was working on um, uh, Indian reservations, Native American reservations in the Southwest as a travel nurse. And this was in the heat of the pandemic, and the ER stayed full.
Mm-hmm.
He was unable to be vaccinated. I forgot what it was. It was an allergy or something he knew about.
Mm-hmm.
He also has a congenital condition where the blood vessels in his liver are slightly malformed. His liver function is fine. It's just, they discovered this.
Yeah,
okay.
I've heard of them.
He gets COVID. And this was during the spike where the blood clots were going crazy.
Oh, dear. It might have been was it the Delta?
Yes.
The Delta.
The Delta variant.
That one was rough.
The blood clots, because of his vascular malformations, shut his liver down. And when I met him, he looked pretty sick.
Was he jaundiced?
He was slightly jaundiced. He was on the list for liver transplant.
Yeah.
And I as I'm talking to him, he's giving me the rundown.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, you're exactly why we should, make every effort to get vaccinated against COVID, because you can't.
Yeah. And not to mention, those things are expensive too. Insurance is going to pay all that.
Oh, gosh.
They're not.
And he's a younger man. He looked like, maybe late 40s, early 50s. He wasn't,
yeah.
He's got he's got a lot of working life ahead of him and all that stuff. And I was like, man, this is too much.
Well, one thing I didn't understand, and this is obviously, I'm moving off of fact to opinion here for a minute, but one thing I could not understand was a lot of the like religious movements that were like, that just, they started running with the my body, my choice thing when they always hated that to begin with. But then like, it's like you preach though that to love your neighbor and to protect others and love others, but then now you're like, screw you. Like, it just, I don't know. It just felt weird.
Again, you guys, a lot of you listeners know my history. Escaping a religious cult. If you're looking for intellectual consistency, don't go there.
Yeah, and it's I feel like there were some religious groups that were totally fine with it, and these were
sure.
I like to say
because
these
they still
outliers, but these were a lot of outliers.
Oh man, they were completely against. They were totally, being part of the problem, and it was very frustrating for me because and
it wasn't just they wouldn't get that either. They wouldn't mask either. They wouldn't do any of that.
None of it. Mitigation
they were
strategies.
Very much against it. They're trying to control us. This is the end of the world kind of deal. And it's a lot of them are misled by the leaders in those groups.
Oh, 100%.
It's not like they're just terrible people.
Well, those people had folded religion and politics together decades ago.
Oh, yeah, and I don't get that either.
Right.
Anyway, moving on. And like I have no problem with religion, but
I understand the First Amendment. Right. I understand the freedom of religion. I totally get it.
But it's also very hypocritical to say you love people and then say, well, I ain't worried about you.
Absolutely work against the greater good every day. It's like that line from Nick Miller in New Girl, where he's like, of course, people have taken this meme and changed the text on screen, but they'll be like, of course you're allowed to practice your religion, but the way you're doing it is really annoying.
Yeah. So,
and I've been that guy. Y'all don't, you guys. Yeah. I know that life.
We're actually going to mention religion here in a minute because
we really have to. We're forced to.
Because it has played a role in this. But I'm not, it's not me taking a hit on anybody whatsoever. And you'll see it's just, it's facts. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So what's in it? There have been so many bad rumors about this particular vaccine, especially. So let's look at the ingredients together. The main ingredient that gives the intended protection is the attenuated or weakened form of these three viruses.
Nanobots.
No.
Okay.
Also, that you couldn't have that in your... Anyway, there's just no physical...
Listen, I've seen Big Hero 6. I'm an expert.
No, there's no physical... I've seen that magic school bus. She was able to get that bus in that little boy's body. She did it.
That's right.
What was that kid's name? Red hair. You know what I'm talking about? Kid that's always like, I don't know about this, guys. Eating his cheese puffs. What's his name? Oh my God.
Elder millennial listeners, help us.
It's going to come to me. It will.
Okay.
Somebody's screaming it right now through the void. So, yeah. These, the 3 viruses, so measles, mumps, and rubella, these are created using the particular strain. For measles, the Edmondson strain originally weakened by Ender, and then propagating it using chick embryo cell cultures. This is typically the reason why those with egg allergies are advised not to take it. Rubella is the exception here, as it's propagated using a fetal cell line, which I will talk about later. Give me a second. Yeah, like basically viruses need something to replicate in. Like they like getting into the human body because that they can replicate in it. Right. They can't do it without something else. So HeLa cells, which we discussed a while ago, these are cells taken from a cancer biopsy and used without permission or acknowledgement until much later from Henrietta Lacks, who was a Black woman and cervical cancer patient in the early 1950s. At this time, it was legal to do this, but now there are definitely rules in place for such a thing. These cells were found to be unusual in that they multiplied quickly and endlessly, leading them to be known as an immortal cell line. As such, they've been used in research for viruses, cancers, vaccines, and HIV as well.
That's fascinating.
John Hopkins on their website, they this is where Henrietta Lacks had sought treatment. Their website is like, we don't own the rights to these cells. They are free. We've never profited from them financially. But it took long enough for her name to be added to the contributions.
The lawyer on retainer at Johns Hopkins University has advised them to do such.
Exactly. We do have some vaccines that have been made using specialized human cell lines. These are known as fibroblasts that were obtained back in the 1960s from 2 electively terminated fetuses. One was more of a therapeutic process. Something was wrong. Fetal cell lines are used with some vaccines because, like I said, viruses need to be grown in cells, and human cells are often better than animal cells at supporting the growth of human viruses. None of these fetuses were terminated especially for this purpose. They were used after the fact. No other fetal cells have been used or needed to continue to make vaccines because of the same cell line, as with the Edmonton strain I mentioned, are used. Also, when I say used, I mean like used to propagate and grow the weakened strain. So you don't receive these cells when you get a vaccine. It's just the medium being used. There are no fetal cells in a vaccine. So,
thank you.
Period. The fetuses were not aborted to make vaccines. Current fetal cell lines are thousands of generations removed from the original fetal tissue. They do not contain any tissue from a fetus. This is important to mention because one concern of those hesitant to receive vaccines or give them to their children is a religious one. Some religious leaders, who, by the way, are not scientists, biology people, or doctors or researchers, know YouTube and Facebook are not reliable sources of medical and scientific research.
Yes.
Some of these people have taught that if you get vaccinated, then you are promoting abortion. This is a pretty big stretch, to be honest, but it's one reason for the lowering rate of childhood vaccinations as well as flu and COVID vaccines.
That's right.
So, but yeah, the mRNA vaccines are not manufactured in cell lines at all. But like testing of mRNA vaccines originally was reportedly using cell lines. But fetal cells were not used to make the Moderna or Pfizer COVID-19 mRNA vaccine. The only time they were used was in the early stages of research and development to test proof of concept before making them. Also, most medications are actually use this same technique. I don't think people know that.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the testing or production line, these medications include acetaminophen, Tylenol, ibuprofen, aspirin. Also, those monoclonal antibodies, yep, they were tested using the same fetal cell lines.
Yes, sir.
Remdesivir is an antiviral used to treat COVID. Yep. Ivermectin, which is an antiparasitic, by the way. Great if you have parasites. Hydroxychloroquine.
He's got worms in his tubes.
Hydroxychloroquine is an anti-malarial. Both were tested using fetal cell lines.
I think Tractor Supply had to lock up their ivermectin.
It is. And here's the thing. Like, it's one thing to get a prescription from your doctor to take safely. It's another to go to a place like that, get something made for an animal, and
Dude.
to use it. Don't
Brother,
do that.
would you take that in front of a veterinary doctor? Would they grab your hand? Would they grab you by the wrist and say, absolutely not?
Don't do that. Okay, yeah. If it's made for a cow, it's not made for you. Or horse, whatever.
You are not bovine.
So, or equine.
Or porcine. I love those adjectives. Like they don't quite, it's like, ooh, it just, I don't know, it just tickles the brain. Those particular adjectives.
And pigs are smart. Could you say someone has a porcine intelligence? I don't know.
It still sounds like a drag.
It does.
Your intelligence is positively porcine.
So anyway, I am, but yeah, I'm not trying to demean anyone's religion at all. The Catholic Church, as well as Islam, has given the thumbs up to vaccination, by the way. Just wanted to correct some misgivings is all.
They've already been through the whole thing with Copernicus and Galileo.
So let's move on to the other ingredients in vaccines, namely the inactive ones and why they are there. Because some people are like, I can't pronounce those things. I don't know what they are. They're probably poison. No. Now, don't get me wrong. There are lots of poisons with cool names out there that I can't pronounce. But there's also a lot of stuff that's okay for you that I also can't pronounce. So here we are. And a lot of things have like 3-4 different names. So here we go. Sorbitol, usually about, in this particular vaccination, 14.5 milligrams per 0.5 milliliters. That's like one shot vial, whatever. Sorbitol is a sorbitol. Sorry, just fun to say.
Yeah.
Sorbitol is a carbohydrate / sugar alcohol. It's actually naturally produced within the human body and in fruits and berries. It is in drinks as a sweetener sometimes. In vaccines, it's used as a stabilizer for the other ingredients. So it is rare to have an intolerance to fructose, but you would kind of know that if you have kind of an intolerance to like fruits or
oh gosh, you'd have found that out way before. Yeah,
sugary type stuff. Well, I don't know, like babies. I don't know how much babies eat fruit, but usually this is more of a later kind of intolerance, though, if you're going to have it. It's not like an allergy. It's simply, kind of like you can have an allergy, but then you can have an intolerance to alcohol. It's not necessarily an allergy. It's just your body responds differently.
Okay.
Sucrose, 1.9 milligrams per 0.5 milliliters. It's also sugar. It's used as a stabilizer as well. So most of us know what sucrose is. Hydrolyzed gelatin. 14.5 milligrams per 0.5 mils. Gelatin derived from pigs, porcine, is used in some live vaccines as a stabilizer to protect live viruses against the effects of temperature. Gelatin in vaccines is highly purified and hydrolyzed, so it's broken down by water, pretty easy. So it's different from like natural gelatin that you'd use in foods. Now, the purification process removes any piggy DNA as well. There's no like pig DNA in these. For example, very sensitive scientific tests have shown that there is no DNA from pigs that can be detected in the nasal flu vaccine, which is also uses this. But and when I say vaccine, we're not talking about shots all the time. The nasal flu one is like where they stick the one up your nose, the weakened one.
Sometimes a vaccine is better delivered straight to your mucous membranes.
Well, and that's an alternative to getting the shot. That one is, and like I feel like you have more symptoms with that though than you would with the shot. Like you tend to have a few more because it is more of a live virus. So people with a known allergy to gelatin should seek expert advice before receiving vaccines that do contain gelatin. It's pretty rare, but it's a thing that does happen. Members of the Muslim or Jewish religious communities may be concerned about using vaccines that contain gelatin from pigs. According to Jewish laws, there is no problem with gelatin or any other animal substance if it's used in a product that does not go into the mouth. Also, there's none left by the time it gets, there's no DNA or animal part of it left by the time it gets into the vaccine.
Yeah,
So
ingesting this or taking this shot would not violate any sort of religious law or statute.
So
Mhm.
yeah, and some Muslim leaders have also ruled the use of gelatin in vaccines does not break religious dietary laws because it is highly purified and it is also injected or inhaled rather than ingested. So just a little bit of information there.
Yeah.
Recombinant human albumin. Now this one probably sounds scary because it's got the word human in it, or whatever. This is actually less than 0.3 milligrams per 0.5 mils. Albumin is a protein that you find in blood serum. It's actually the most prevalent protein there. Albumin transports hormones, fatty acids, and other compounds, buffers pH, maintains oncotic pressure. It's got a lot of functions. Okay.
Albumin in your body is like pine trees in Georgia.
There you go.
They're everywhere.
Now, human serum albumin, or HSA as you may see it, is also a supplement that can be added to cell structure media. It helps provide the essential nutrients, proteins, and hormones required for optimal cell growth. Also, fun fact, human serum albumin may be used to potentially reverse drug or chemical toxicity by binding to that particular drug or agent. So it's pretty cool. Recombinant HSA is actually sourced from various yeast, bacteria, or plant sources instead of human plasma. They express the genes that are needed there and just extract it that way. It's simply an alternative means of sourcing the human albumin rather than plasma, like human plasma. So, but this stuff is already in your body. So there you go. Fetal bovine serum probably sounds scary to some people too, but it's not. Less than 0.1 parts per million per 0.5 mils. Basically nothing. But this is used as a growth supplement. Traditionally, vaccines are made from a weakened or dead form of a disease-causing microorganism that stimulates the immune system and creates these antibodies that protect against the stronger versions of that pathogen. To create large batches of this vaccine to, be given to lots of people, the vaccine component must be produced in high quantities. Makes sense. So viruses cannot replicate outside of a host, as we know. Therefore, a host animal or cell type must be provided. This particular substance is actually not really in the final vaccine itself. Rather, its macromolecular proteins are broken down by the cells for use as nutrients. And its growth factors stimulate proliferation of the desired cells. So it's used by that which is in the vaccine, and then it's gone by the time it gets to you.
That's right. It sustains the active ingredients. It's like a yolk in an
Yeah. So this is why you see the less than 0.1 parts per million. They just have to let you know that it is included initially.
For in the interest of candor and due diligence, I want to tell you exactly what's in it.
Also, neomycin, 25 micrograms per 0.5 mils. This is a very low dose of the antibiotic neomycin. This is to prevent bacterial growth in the vaccine itself. So these are the ingredients of the MMR vaccine. There's also these are also in other vaccines, and some vaccines may contain other similar ingredients. So yeah, you can find this very simply by looking up the particular vaccine on a website that makes the thing or whatever. They're required to tell you what's in it.
Also, the nanobots.
Oh my God, not the nanobots and the magic school bus.
After you take the COVID shot, you can put a quarter on your shoulder and it'll stick.
That's called sweat. But okay. I do want to bring into question the uses of thimerosal.
I can hear 88.3 in my head now after I took that shot.
That would actually be kind of cool. Like, just like make your head move and you can change the channel.
Oh, man.
I do want to bring into question the uses of thimerosal.
Thimerosal?
Well, it's thimerosal here.
Oh, excuse me.
It does have an extra vowel in when it's said in the UK.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And aluminum salts that have been used in some vaccines. Thimerosal gained scrutiny because it is derived from mercury. It has been included in some vaccines as an antimicrobial to prevent bacterial and fungal growth. Its dosage is enough to destroy pathogens while lower than that which could cause problems. You actually get more mercury from eating tuna, essentially, in your body.
See, folks, there's this thing called chemistry and
bioaccumulation, my favorite thing. So yeah, a vaccine containing 0.01% of thimerosal has, as a preservative, contains 50 micrograms of thimerosal per 0.5 mils dose. So approximately 25 micrograms of mercury per 0.5 milliliter dose. For comparison, this is roughly the same amount of elemental mercury contained in a 3-ounce can of tuna fish. Also,
you can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
Oh my God. Also, it should be noted that thimerosal metabolizes into ethyl mercury, not methyl mercury. The latter is more toxic and not as easily broken down. Its use is actually pretty much in decline now, though. Since 2001, all vaccines for children under 6 are thimerosal free, except for some flu vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one other thing,
so you're able to achieve an antimicrobial state even without it.
Yeah, with another, probably like with the neomycin, for instance, used in the MMR. So,
sure.
One other thing to note: a 2014 Australian study of over 1 million children found no evidence of a link between thimerosal, as it said over there.
Oh, okay.
Thimerosal in vaccines and autism development.
Imagine that.
We will talk more about that concern with vaccines in a moment. But aluminum salts, because some people freak out over aluminum
There's
salt.
aluminum in your deodorant.
Well, you actually probably get more in your food than you do in your deodorant. But if you don't want to use the deodorant with aluminum, then don't.
You don't have to.
You don't have to.
Use a gel-based deodorant.
Well, those have aluminum in them too.
Do they really?
Yeah, there are aluminum-free ones. They'll say that on the thing, but it's really that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, but you probably get aluminum in your food a lot, honestly. Not enough to really hurt you, but. Now, yeah, many vaccines contain aluminum salts, such as aluminum hydroxide, aluminum phosphate, or potassium aluminum sulfate. Well, these basically strengthen and lengthen the immune response to the vaccine. Aluminum salts appear to slow down the release of the active ingredient from the vaccine once it's injected, and it stimulates the immune system to respond to the vaccine. So they also absorb protein very well, and they'll stop the proteins within the vaccine from sticking to the walls of the container during storage. So it kind of helps with that.
Sure.
Aluminum is actually the most common metal in the Earth's crust. We are exposed to it all the time. It reacts with other elements to form aluminum salts, and small amounts of these are found naturally in almost all foods and drinking water, as well as in breast milk and in formula milk for babies. Aluminum salts are used as food additives. Breads, cakes have them.
As we've said many times before, the dose makes the poison.
It does, yeah. And sometimes it sounds scary because it's like, isn't that a metal? Iron's a metal. Your body needs that. Maybe you're not eating iron in this metal form,
which reminds me of that hilarious clip from the Basement Yard podcast where Frankie is like, iron's not like metal. And he's like, yeah, yes, it is.
It's like
the iron in food.
I mean, elemental iron. Yeah, it's still. Yeah.
Sure. The way it occurs organically is that, it is different, but it's like he had no idea it was the exact same.
It's still
like,
iron.
It's not metal. He's like, yes, it is. Joey, yes, it is.
Well, people aren't. When people think metal, they think like this hard substance, but all the heavy metals that we've talked about that can be easily given in powder or liquid form.
Totally.
So, anyway. So, yeah. Also, aluminum is used in drugs such as antacids. It's used widely in food packaging. If you use, that kind of stuff. So the amount of aluminum present in vaccines is actually very small. It's less than 2 milligrams of the salts and less than 1 milligram of actual aluminum. Aluminum is not used by the body. Any aluminum absorbed from food or other sources is gradually eliminated through the kidneys. And babies are actually born with aluminum already present in their bodies, probably from the mother's blood. Over time, small amounts of aluminum from food, drink, and other sources do accumulate in the body, but this is not believed to pose a significant risk to health. There's actually been research done in the UK back in 2004 that talked about this. The view of most experts is that there is currently no convincing evidence that exposure to everyday levels of aluminum in any form increases the risk of Alzheimer's disease, genetic damage, or cancer. Now, you may see like memes and stuff on Facebook that are like, aluminum causes cancer. There's a lot of that out there, but it's good to just do your research and see, well, where is that evidence of that.
Aluminum causes cancer. Clickbait causes stupidity.
Well, also, like, it's easy to look at the title of a paper and completely get what they were talking about wrong if you don't read it. So that's,
yes,
it is a thing.
And let me just mention, okay, so I may have mentioned before, I have a doctorate in my field. I'm a physical therapist. The reason my training was doctoral was because the doctoral component was educating us on how to critically consume clinical research data.
Yeah.
If you are not well-versed in what increases or decreases the strength of validity of a research study, it can be dangerous to try to consume that stuff in an unskilled manner.
Or then reproduce it somewhere else.
And then reproduce it somewhere else. I got so just annoyed with journalists being able to publish full-blown articles regarding, the science at the time, especially during the pandemic, of preprint journal articles.
Well, it's one thing to give your own interpretation of something. It's another to actually interview maybe the person who wrote it and to actually get answers about what it means and stuff.
Yeah.
So
The existence of the internet, it can lead everybody to feel as if they are an expert. And the truth of the matter is, expertise still exists.
And see, I don't feel that way at all. Like, I'm a nurse.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but like, he's an expert. He said
he's an expert.
But like, there are things that I know about. But like, even when I think about the things I know about, I'm like, I mean, I know about them, but I'm not like,
if you develop some measure of expertise somewhere, you learn enough to know how much you're not an expert everywhere else.
But I also think that part of being an expert, like to get to that point, you always have to be okay with knowing that you need to learn more, even when you are an expert.
Of course. Well,
because things change.
They do. They change. The science advances all the time, as the scientific institution should.
Yeah.
In order to be effective and helpful to society. But intellectual honesty requires that principle. Okay, I know what I know now. Something new could develop later.
Right.
And I'm open to that.
Yeah, never trust an expert who thinks he knows everything.
It's true.
Because there's always something new to be known.
True. You're not really dealing with an expert when they've got a big fat back in my day vibe.
Oh my God.
That's tough.
Yeah. Okay, so like I've said before, there are some who can't take vaccines due to certain conditions or allergies, and this should be discussed with a medical professional so that you understand and avoid those problems. Also, with any medication, vaccines are not perfect. They may carry risks or rare side effects. I mean, like we've talked about with some of those like ads, oh my God, or the side effects of some antibiotics. And then there's vitamin K. The vitamin K. There was this thing going around saying, oh, don't let them give your baby vitamin K when they're born because whatever. And it's like, there's got a black box on it. I'm like, it's got a black box on the, like, that's not, you're not giving it IV to a baby when they're born. You're giving it to them intramuscular. It's a very different thing. And it's to keep them from bleeding out should something be going on.
Once again, guys, there's lots of money to be made from misinformation and disinformation. It is an industry.
Also, people who are doing that are usually selling something else that they want you to get. Yeah.
Vitamins, rocks that you're supposed to put under your driver's seat in your electric car to prevent sterility.
Like vitamins are, they're great. Your body needs vitamins in certain amounts. But like at the same time, like if you're not deficient, then it's not really going to do anything for you.
No, it makes your pee very expensive.
Yeah, and they do cost money. Oh my God, they cost money. And they're not regulated either, so you don't really know what's in them.
No,
they can just tell you whatever they want.
And again,
so be careful.
I mentioned the death of expertise, guys. There's a reason that food labeling is required to inform a consumer. These claims have not been validated by the FDA. So they can say whatever they want on the label, but if it also says these claims haven't been validated, that's a legal statement.
Yeah, whatever supplements you get into, I would say just check and see if they've been tested by a third party just to make sure they don't have anything crazy in them, because they can put anything they want sometimes. So anyway, but like one such side effect connected to some of the COVID vaccines included myocarditis, which is actually the side effect itself to the vaccine is still rarer than its occurrence after having COVID, because COVID can cause myocarditis. That's probably why your immune system kind of does that too when you get the vaccine. This is the inflammation of the heart muscle, and it can also occur more readily and more severely with COVID infection, as well as with other viruses such as the flu. The flu can, like the incidence of heart attacks tends to increase after a heavy flu season because people can have heart attacks after having the flu. Not everybody, but it does happen.
Yeah.
So, in cases seen with vaccination, this was mild, and those who had the side effect recovered fully. In all age groups studied, however, the overall risk of COVID infection-related hospitalization and death were hugely greater than the risks of any post-vaccine myocarditis. So, where did the whole vaccines cause autism idea come from?
Oh, let's talk about it.
Oh my God! And I feel like this is relevant because I have autism too. So,
did you get more autistic after your COVID vaccines?
No.
Okay. Just asking.
No, I did not. My anxiety went down a little bit because, I didn't want, look, I've had COVID. Crap sucks. Oh my God. When I get sick, I get sick. It lasts a while for me. So it was awful. But yeah, we're going to talk about Andrew freaking Wakefield and his fraudulent scheming self. I will always have a special place in my amygdala for this man.
Not your amygdala.
My amygdala. So let's talk about it. And I feel like Andrew, well, maybe some people know him now still, but Andrew Wakefield was born in 1959 in Taplow, England. Sorry, Brits, but this one is one of y'all's. We all have a few. I think America probably has more than a few, but we have a few. Yeah, he's still around and pretty influential in certain political circles and such. He was a doctor, but his license was revoked, and I will tell you why momentarily. He studied medicine at St. Mary's Hospital Medical School. I think it's now called the Imperial College School of Medicine. He became a member of the Royal College of Surgeons in 1985, and he did a fellowship in Toronto, Canada, that specialized in the study of the body's responses to small intestine transplants. Look, when I tell you I know a lot about this man, I know a lot about this man.
Small intestine transplant. Wow.
He went back to the UK later in the late 1980s to focus on studies including inflammatory bowel disease. So I'm not exactly sure what all this entailed. I think it had something to do with transplants as well. But he did join the Royal Free Hospital there, to work. He was asked to resign from this hospital in 2001, after which he moved to Texas in the U.S. And we're going to talk about that time period. So, in 1998, he and 12 others published a paper titled Ileolymphoid Nodular Hyperplasia, Nonspecific Colitis, and Pervasive Developmental Disorder in Children. See what I mean about these titles of these?
That's a lot of syllables.
Okay. This is the title of the paper. It doesn't look like anything crazy can happen from this kind of paper. I probably wouldn't even know what any of that means. But it was published in the Lancet, and it suggested that the MMR vaccine may this is their words, may predispose children to behavioral regression and pervasive developmental disorder.
Wow.
It just came out and was stating that.
Is that a direct quote? That's the language from their study?
Yeah, may predispose behavioral regression and pervasive developmental disorder in children.
Okay.
And we're going to come back to that may in just a minute.
Please.
This, according to him, is due to the unsupported idea that the 3 vaccines given together can alter a child's immune system, allowing the measles virus in the vaccine to infiltrate the intestines, in which certain proteins can escape from the intestines and then reach and harm neurons in the brain. It's what he said.
Cool story, bro.
In this paper of his, he used 12 children as examples of those who had received the MMR vaccine. First of all, 12.
So small.
Okay. When they were younger, and who at the time of writing the paper had, quote unquote, developmental delays. Now, 8 of these children were reportedly autistic. He claimed that all of these children had intestinal complaints and had begun to show signs of autism 1 month after receiving the MMR vaccine years ago. He didn't know these kids back then, but okay. The intestinal complaints mentioned actually did not show up until sometime after the diagnosis of autism for those who were actually diagnosed with autism. I'm going to come back to that. Still, he believes that the autism is caused by intestinal inflammation from the vaccine. First of all,
that is a leap.
First of all, the man has no special background in autism or neuroscience.
Yeah.
None. I think one of his parents was a neurologist at one point. That's the only connection there.
Okay.
He was a gastroenterologist until he was fired and lost his license. Now, the sample size of this so-called study only involved those 12 children, no control group whatsoever. But the paper blew up and parents became hesitant to vaccinate their kids based on this. Now, what Wakefield did not mention was that at least 5 of the 8 confirmed autistic children all had something in common. And I say confirmed. He said they were confirmed. So reportedly autistic children. They and their families were clients of a personal injury lawyer named Richard Barr, which is a fun name for a lawyer, actually. About 6 years later, a journalist from the London Times named Brian Deere made some discoveries and alleged that Wakefield had received a large payout of at least $100,000 from this injury lawyer. An investigation after these allegations found that it was actually $800,000 that was given to Wakefield to do this research.
Oh, he quote unquote funded the research.
A lawyer did.
Right.
Right.
But it only cost him like a fraction of that to actually perform the study. That's a kickback.
Now, this money was a part of a hefty fund given to law firms by the British government's Legal Services Commission and was for use in the investigation of claims. Now, this was a thing at the time. It's been replaced, thankfully, because it doesn't sound like a good idea.
I don't understand why the money would be appropriated to legal counsel first. Like, if you want to investigate that as a federal government,
lawyers were like basically supervising the scientific research, which to me sounds like, okay,
a personal injury lawyer. I don't think so.
So it's been replaced. It was replaced in 2013 with a new program called the Legal Aid Agency, and now lawyers are not the supervisors of the scientific research involving a claim like they were in this case. So Wakefield received a lot of money to say what he did for a lawyer seeking to win lawsuits for his clients.
Interesting. Okay, so the way that they appropriated the funding from the jump was going to be problematic.
Yeah, and there was more money involved. This is what he gave Wakefield.
Sure. Yeah.
Now,
this doesn't account for the cash that probably changed hands.
And I don't think any of his co-authors got any of this cash. I think it was just Wakefield. So there were found to be a significant amount of mistruths in the paper concerning the children. 3 of 9, originally 8 that were reported with regressive autism, and we'll go over that in a minute, did not have autism diagnosed at all. Only 1 child clearly had regressive autism. Regressive autism is when so there's regressive autism. You basically if you get diagnosed as a child, right? You may get diagnosed because you're not meeting certain milestones, or it gets noticed, at the time that you're a child. Some people will have children who are doing well, but then seem to regress in their skills or milestones.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people have looked at that and said, well, this started after I got them their vaccinations, which happen around the same time. Like, you get vaccinations as a young child.
Yeah, they're implying
correlating
causation.
Yeah, they're correlating this and saying, well, this must be the cause of it. When in reality, that's just kind of what autism can do.
It's incidental.
Because, I have had skill regression. Okay, it's been rough. Okay.
Also, real quick, just as somebody who's been been trained to critically consume clinical research data, inclusion and exclusion criteria for your subjects is Research Design 101. You can't call them autistic if they have not been officially diagnosed.
Yeah, not in a paper like this.
Your inclusion criteria must include a formal clinical autistic diagnosis.
Yeah, like he said that they were autistic, but
it turned out that up.
It turned out that some of them were not.
You can get your entire study thrown out just for that.
And not all of them were reportedly autistic. Some of them just happened to have certain developmental issues that went unnamed. But anyway,
that is just so stupid. It's like, brother, you need to know what it is. And further than that, is it pure autism? Do they also have ADHD? Do they also have X, Y, and Z? You
Yeah.
can't throw all this stuff in the bucket and call it clinical data.
Well, he did. And
Yes.
yeah, one child actually had developmental delays before having the MMR vaccine anyway. So in 9 cases where there were unremarkable colonic histopathology results, basically looking at their intestines and such, which showed no or minimal fluctuations in inflammatory cell populations, meaning that there was no inflammation going on. These were apparently changed after a medical school quote unquote research review to include non-specific colitis. So basically facts and findings were literally made up. Like he changed what was going on with them.
Oh, man.
Diagnosis wise.
I'm just ashamed for the Lancet that it got published.
Oh, they were too. They were kind of mad. They went back and were like, we were deceived. Now
are you?
I don't know. I don't know who passed it through. Yeah.
Joking.
I don't know who passed it through, but here we are. Maybe they got paid too. Who knows? Or somebody did. I don't know. Also, all the patients were found to have been recruited through anti-MMR campaigners. That was a thing.
Facebook groups.
I don't know. Was Facebook around in 1998?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember that time of my life, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason for that. But yeah, and the study was already planned to basically be used for litigation purposes. Like they were planning to get money based on.
Oh, yeah. They were going to win their case.
Yeah.
Oh, he was going to go on an entire campaign, class action. That guy was looking to retire off of this single class action lawsuit.
Now, by looking at the records and interviewing the parents, Deere found that for all 12 children in the Wakefield study, diagnoses had been tweaked or dates changed to fit the article's conclusion. So on January 11th, 2011, Deere said that based on documents that he obtained under the Freedom of Information legislation, Wakefield, in partnership with the father of one of the boys that was in the study, had planned to launch this new thing on the back of an MMR vaccination scare that would profit from new medical tests and also litigation-driven testing. So you could sue with it.
Yeah.
And now the Washington Post reported that Deere said that Wakefield predicted that he could make more than $43 million a year from diagnostic kits for this new condition that he had come up with called autistic enterocolitis.
Oh my God. Brother.
Yeah. So it was reported also elsewhere saying that $43 million predicted yearly profits would come from marketing kits for quote unquote diagnosing patients with autism, and quote unquote the initial market for the diagnostic will be litigation driven testing of patients with autistic enterocolitis with unproven condition concocted by Wakefield from both the UK and the USA, according to this article. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. He also apparently was planning to create a replacement vaccine to sell to people. I don't know.
Excuse me, what?
I know. Anyway, so
folks, I don't want to say this to scare everyone regarding the medical establishment, but the distribution of crackpots in medical personnel, it's the same as general society.
Well, he's not in it anymore.
No.
He's publicly damaged his...
Right, of course. But we have licensure, oversight bodies, and professional organizations, and of course the legal system to prevent the crackpots from hurting people.
And that comes into play here too.
Of course it does.
Now this was not Wakefield's first anti-MMR take either. In 1993, Wakefield published reports in which he concluded that measles virus might cause Crohn's disease. Okay, I've seen viruses cause crazy things.
All right, let's see it.
And 2 years later, he published a paper in the Lancet proposing a link between the measles vaccine.
Who is his buddy at the Lancet?
The measles vaccine and Crohn's disease. Subsequent research failed to confirm this hypothesis. There were groups there were groups of experts in like Britain reviewing a number of peer-reviewed studies in 1998, and they concluded that the measles virus does not cause Crohn's disease, and neither did the MMR vaccine. And I don't know if that's like, there are viruses that can lead to autoimmune issues. There are we know we know now that like the Epstein-Barr virus can possibly lead to MS. Like they're looking into that and other issues. So it's not like they would just hide this from you. Like if it caused it, they're going to look into it.
Yeah.
So what prompted him into looking into autism? In 1995, while conducting research into Crohn's disease, he was approached by a woman named Rosemary Kessick. She was the parent of a child with autism, and she was seeking help with her son's bowel problems and autism. Kessick also ran a group called Allergy-Induced Autism.
Okay.
So there's that. I don't really... Now, the next year, Wakefield decided to look into the vaccine causing autism. He just wants this vaccine to cause something, since he could not prove it had anything to do with Crohn's.
Yeah.
Now, I want to pause to mention that there are many people on the autism spectrum or that have ADHD that do also have chronic GI issues. Some are on the spectrum and do not have chronic GI issues. It's a spectrum, It has been suggested by autism researcher and neuroscientist Pat Levitt at the Keck School of Medicine at the University of Southern California, that's a lot, that while a faulty gut is not the cause of autism, the two problems might develop in some subset of people on the autism spectrum in tandem, each as a result of a flawed interaction of genes and environment, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And we don't fully understand the cause of autism. It's mostly been attributed to genetics as of late. So also autism is a spectrum, and it looks different among those on it. So some are diagnosed after skill regression in early childhood. Others are diagnosed simply for not meeting those certain milestones. Others, like myself, showed signs as a child, wasn't diagnosed till later, was good at masking till I wasn't. Actually, I really wasn't that good at masking. You know what I mean? Like I was not.
You probably were.
I mean, I guess enough to...
You joined a sorority, for God's sake.
That was an accident. Someone asked me to meet them somewhere. I showed up, and next thing I know, it's like, oh, you're in our club. And I'm like, oh my God, here we are.
They were like, hey girl, you're hot. You should be in our group.
No, they wanted me for my GPA. I'm pretty sure that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
Because like, if you didn't have a good enough GPA, you couldn't keep that organization.
Also, you were hot.
Whatever.
Still are, if I'm honest.
And I literally paid to miss things because you got fined if you missed. Anyway.
You guys should see the photos of Becca during that time of her life. Like, you want to talk about just
masking,
and
drinking.
you were just
had to do it because
just a cutie patootie
being around so many people. Anyway, yeah. So, and a lot of people aren't diagnosed until later. This is pretty true for many women and people of color. Just something to keep in mind. So back to Wakefield, the 1998 paper, the one where he's trying to connect the MMR shot to I almost said measles, to autism, was immediately and heavily refuted by other scientists, of course, citing the many flaws in research and in logic. Basically, the paper was trying to say that these kids had the MMR shot when they were young, as most children during this time did, about 90%. And they also have developmental issues or autism now. Therefore, the vaccine must cause autism. That's a correlation that you can do that with anything. I have blonde hair and I have autism. All people with blonde hair have autism. I went to a daycare as a baby. I have autism. Daycare causes autism.
That's right. The DMV causes anger.
I mean, that might be true. You want a medical thing? I took an antibiotic for an ear infection as a baby. Antibiotics cause autism.
There you go.
I mean, antibiotics can cause gastrointestinal side effects too, right? So, I mean, anyway, he co-authored another paper in a minor journal, doubling down by commenting on two papers on laboratory work that he said showed that measles virus had been found in tissue samples taken from children who had autism and bowel problems. But that's like no new evidence at all. You're just trying to say like, because like if you've had the MMR shot, like if you have like really good or like super sensitive testing equipment, you can find stuff like that anyway. Anyway, in 2001, Mark Berlowitz, one of the co-authors of the paper, said, and this is his quote, "I am certainly not aware of any convincing evidence for the hypothesis of a link between MMR and autism." And a lot of people that like quote unquote co-authored this, like, I don't think they knew what was going to go in this paper very much, because like they came back and were like 10 out of 12 of those colleagues who assisted him with this paper, they put a retraction to the paper. Like they published a retraction.
Where was it published?
The Lancet.
Oh, and 10 of the 12 were signed on to the retraction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, like papers from other independent scientists and teams of scientists were published soon after this, proving his claims untrue and extensively flawed. There have been many studies since that have shown that vaccines, including the MMR, do not cause autism. According to the retraction of those 10 out of those 12 colleagues, it was written, no causal link was established between MMR vaccine and autism as the data were insufficient. The Lancet then admitted that Wakefield and his co-authors had failed to disclose financial interests, such as being funded by lawyers who had been engaged by the parents in lawsuits and against vaccine-producing companies. And he got fired from the hospital he was working at because he refused to try to replicate any data. Like he was like, no, I don't need to do that. Even though like a study is not like a peer-reviewed study is one that can, like, this is a study that can be replicated. This is a study that
validity.
It's going to have like the same thing is happening each time kind of thing.
Yeah. If the study with the original 12 were, if it has enough strength, the establishment is going to push to fund a larger sample size, multiple geographical locations, and a control group, and randomized control trials, multi-site, all that stuff. That's where it's headed if you find something significant. And when you refuse to validate it, you're saying, well, probably because I'm lying.
And like, there is more money to be had with doing this than there is in giving vaccines. You get vaccines for free or cheap because it's something that everyone should have access to. You're not like giving money out to that.
And just a side note, the patent for the MMR vaccine that Dr. Paul Offit had a big hand in developing, he doesn't own the patent.
No.
The Children's Hospital of Philadelphia actually owns that patent. They're the ones who manage it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like, trust me, health insurance, like, they want you to get vaccines, but that's because they don't want to have to pay for when you get really sick.
Oh, God.
So if you get really sick and get hospitalized, that's more money on them. So that's the reason why they want you to get vaccinated too.
Do you know how expensive it is to be very sick in the hospital, in the ICU?
It's expensive, yeah.
Brother.
It's not cool.
Even the insurance companies, who are the spawn of Satan, will tell you. You should probably get vaccinated, though.
So we don't have to pay for all of this. And honestly, they probably won't pay enough of it anyway. But that's a whole nother.
I mean, we're going to deny your claim, but you should probably get vaccinated.
Okay. So a separate study of children with gastrointestinal disturbances found no difference between those with autism spectrum disorders and those without, with respect to the presence of measles virus RNA in the bowel. It also found that gastrointestinal symptoms and the onset of autism were unrelated in time to the administration of the MMR vaccine. The Lancet completely retracted the Wakefield paper in February of 2010, admitting that several elements in the paper were incorrect. Wakefield and the others were actually found guilty of ethical violations as they had conducted invasive investigations on the children without obtaining the necessary ethical clearances. And they were also
published.
Yeah.
I'm just shocked. Okay, guys, you've heard me mention institutional review boards before. You can't begin gathering data unless the IRB approves what you're doing, and they are the ones who check into the ethical standards first. Like, okay, is this worth doing? Is it practical to do? Also, is it legal? Second of all, are you violating anybody's personal privacy or civil rights?
But that takes time and money,
Right.
And also, they might hold you accountable. They were found guilty of this. They were also found guilty of scientific misrepresentation, as they had reported that their sampling was consecutive when in fact it was selective. These children it was these kids for a reason.
Yes.
So they were later found guilty as well of deliberate fraud. They picked and chose data that suited their case. So they falsified facts. The British Medical Journal has actually published a series of articles on the exposure of the fraud, which appears to have taken place for financial gain. It was also discovered that no independent ethics committee was involved.
I am aghast.
So on January 28th, that's our wedding anniversary, 2010, the General Medical Council panel found 4 counts of dishonesty and 12 involving the abuse of developmentally disabled children. Britain's General Medical Council found Wakefield guilty of serious professional misconduct. That was their words, saying that he had presented his work in an irresponsible and dishonest way, and that he had shown callous disregard for the children in his study. The council struck his name from the UK's medical register, so he's no longer a doctor. He's not a doctor here either. He currently lives in the US. He's not a doctor here either.
Of course he does.
The Lancet retracted his article. Even though he's no longer a doctor, he continues his quote-unquote research alongside other anti-vax influencers.
I'm going to sign up for his email list today.
Oh my God.
I need it.
He's a wealthy dude. Trust me, he lives in a gated house. Like, it's a big
insane
house.
I am seething with rage. Like, ugh.
So yeah. A lot of the people that support him too are like politicians, celebrities, and it's sad, but like moms who just want answers and are looking kind of in the wrong place. So some anti-vaccine groups tried to sue these researchers, like actual researchers, but not because they had evidence against the science. They literally admitted that they had, and this is in quotes, dedicated substantial time and resources to serving as expert witnesses and were dependent upon the compensation they received as a significant source of income.
Who was serving as expert witness?
Just these anti-vaccine groups.
Anti-vax advocates?
Now, after the expenditure...
They were considered expert witnesses?
For their groups, yeah.
They were actually called to the stand to testify as expert witnesses.
Yeah, and it's probably more like anecdotal type stuff. But
yeah, that's not expertise.
I know, but they called themselves that. Now, after the expenditure...
I can't go to work today. I'm too upset.
...of much time and money by the defense, these suits were eventually dropped. Anti-vaccine advocates then took the case to the federal court, even though there were already many accounts from reputable scientists and various peer-reviewed and published studies showing that the MMR vaccine, and we're not talking about thimerosal here, caused autism. Okay. So the judges evaluated 3 separate cases representing 5,000 claimants. They found in 2009 that neither MMR nor thimerosal caused autism. In 2010, the U.S. Federal Court of Appeals upheld the lower court's ruling of dropping, you can't sue them. So one scientist that testified in this case explained, and these are his words, the petitioners have been the victims of bad science conducted to support litigation rather than to advance medical and scientific understanding of autism, which I thought was a pretty good review of that. So the Canadian Pediatric Society, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Sciences, and the UK National Health Service have all concluded that there is no link between the MMR vaccine and autism. And a 2011 journal article described the vaccine autism connection as, quote unquote, the most damaging medical hoax in the last 100 years. This dude still has followers, like I said.
Oh, yeah.
And many of them, as he has himself, have resorted to claiming that the health departments and officials were paying bloggers and influencers to make bad comments about him everywhere. I would like to take this moment to attest that I have never been paid to discredit Wakefield or anyone else for that matter. I just do it for fun.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I am paid in my own personal satisfaction.
Yeah. Well, it hurts because it's like people like this hurt people.
Yes.
They prey on people and they use their emotions against them to help them see something that isn't true. And
to make an absolute mountain of money.
He's a cult leader.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. See, okay. So let's talk, that word, okay. It's not misinformation all on its own. There are other factors in play that help him remain successful, even though he is a lying piece of excrement.
He's preying on these people who are, they want answers. And I get that. You want answers for why is your child this way? Like a lot of people do that and it's fine. But like he is preying on their emotions.
Yeah.
He is making them feel validated. And he's manipulating them.
Yes. And they also employ, along with misinformation, disinformation, They also employ a vicious us versus them propaganda.
And like people say, well, what does he get out of this? Are you kidding me? He gets money for speaking events. He gets money for he wrote a book. He's directed a film. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But he gets he's making some money.
It's terrible.
And y'all know I will rip on the U.S. Department of Health and pharmaceutical companies, and have for their issues too, because they have had issues. They've done some naughty stuff.
Yeah, it's America.
Also, health insurance companies. Ugh. Anyway, but his followers have no problem sending threats to those who do not agree with him. So that's fun. He does book signings and stuff, sometimes at churches. There have been like cases where armed guards were there too. I literally just wrote LOL in my notes, like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, Wakefield went on to write a book about the allegations that were made against him, and he called it Callous Disregard, which is what the judge had told him he was being or having for these children. And he directed a film promoting anti-vaccine stuff called Vaxxed, From Cover Up to Catastrophe in 2016. The film was actually removed from the Tribeca Film Festival by Robert De Niro because his son actually has autism. And he's like, you're not doing this here.
Amazing. Okay.
He also gained attention again in 2020/2021 when he went to events to tell people vaccines will kill us. So he's like anti-vax, not just MMR. Like he's become like this cult like figure to his biggest followers.
Yes.
And actually, this was a J.B. Handley, who is the co-founder of Generation Rescue, which is a group that disputes vaccine safety, has said, to our community, Andrew Wakefield is Nelson Mandela and Jesus Christ rolled up into one.
Brother, if that's not the clearest...
That's what he said.
I mean, red flag.
And it's like I said before, it's one thing to be hesitant because you don't know what's in it and you want to know more. That's one thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
But this is like the outright lies and such. It's bad. So yeah, he's basically got this cult following, literally in some cases. And there's people who have been vaccine hesitant that may not even know who this guy is, but he is the main start of those fears surrounding vaccines.
That's right.
And like I said, it's obviously one thing to research what you're putting into your body, whether it's food, medicine, whatever. And that's what my intention was with this half of this episode, because there's a lot of information out there, some good, some bad. The best resources are honestly those that have been reviewed by others that are competent in the field involved. Studies should include many factors such as control groups, blinding, and of course, accurate and honest information. And part of the reason for peer review is to hold dishonest or incorrect individuals accountable. So the guy is no doubt wealthy. He continues, in my opinion, to prey on parents looking for answers to their children's disorders and disabilities. I personally see him as a poison on science. Remember that validation from wrong places can be venomous. Okay. We're all looking for validation in some way, but it can come from the wrong place. But he's also supposedly and strangely writing a book discussing how many parents with Munchausen by proxy have been falsely diagnosed and persecuted. Which Munchausen by proxy has done a lot of harm. Oh my God. Yeah. They may have had, anyway, it's caused a lot of harm. But we've talked about a case, at least on the bonus episode, where that was a thing.
I need a drink.
And here's the thing. Everything that has actual evidence for it will still be disputed by those that are passionately against it for reasons other than reason itself. Like there's going to be, I mean, like the moon landing.
Of course.
Anything is anything.
It's not about intellectual honesty for them. It is about a crusade. It's about identity and group belonging dynamics.
Yeah.
Because if they recant any of this, they cannot belong to this group anymore. And the more deeply they intertwine their personality, their identity with this group, the harder it becomes to leave.
But I do want to leave with this last little fact. Global immunization efforts have saved at least 154 million lives over the past 50 years. That's a statistic from last year. So I'm just, I'm trying to leave you with the facts, the numbers, the data, the research that has been peer reviewed. And I know that was a lot. That was 27 pages I wrote this week on that. That was a lot, I know. But it's something that I am passionate about because I don't understand why it's so controversial. And I don't like when people lie to other people and make money off of them and like basically hurt them and their children because they're making money off of this lie. I hate that. And whether he even knows he's lying anymore, I don't know. I don't know.
It's so fascinating to think about that. Like, does the grifter believe their grift or not? Do they know that they're just grifting and they have totally rationalized that away in their own psyche?
And it's not just him doing that. There's tons of people like that right now. I'm done though. That's all I have.
Awesome. All right. That's measles, folks. Measles is bad. Get your shots.
Also,
clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
If you have testicles, mumps will get them. So you don't want that.
I got orchitis.
Not orchitis.
Okay. That's all for this episode, everyone. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.